I'm definitely not the sweetest mom on the planet. And do you want to know why? You'll have to watch the rest of this video to find out. Guilty as charged. I am not the sweetest mom on the planet, and I'm okay with that fact. And I'm not really talking about how I am as a person, but this not so sweet mama thing also kind of sometimes makes me a very mean mom, and I'm also okay with that. So what do I mean by all this? You can find out more by reading my blog post below, Not So Sweet Mama, and by hanging on and watching the rest of this video, because I'm going to let you in on some really important information, and I'm going to tell you how to make a special treat for yourself or your kids that's got 4 ingredients. I'm not good at remembering stuff. It's been a busy week. That is really actually good for you and can kind of be sweet if you need a little something for your sweet tooth. So why am I not a sweet mama? I have, from the conception of motherhood, been a very low sugar mom with a very low sugar household. I was raised in a low sugar household, so it was kind of natural for me to go into my own motherhood making sure that my kids were eating as healthily as possible. But as I've mentioned before, when my son was really small, he was struggling with some adverse reactions that were affecting his health. And that really prompted me to really research and learn about all of the things that we eat, that we're exposed to, how they affect different parts of our bodies, our immune system, our neurological system, etc. And one of the things that kept popping up was sugar. So for a lot of us, at least the way I grew up, for a lot of us, we just assume that sugar gives us cavities. So sugar's bad for your teeth, but the reality is sugar isn't only just bad for your teeth, it's bad for pretty much everything. It causes a lot of inflammation. It pretty much destroys your immune system. It's not great. And if you want to go into the natural aging aspect of things, which this video isn't going to be about, but I'll incorporate it in because we're rewiring adulthood, right? Too much sugar is going to age you. It's just not great. So trying to avoid it as much as possible and realistically as possible is what this mama is all about. And what I mean by avoiding it realistically is, so for example, when my kids were young and I could pretty much control everything they were eating, I didn't purchase anything that had sugars or artificial sweeteners. Anything sweet that they got had natural sweeteners from fruit. For example, if I was going to get yogurt, I would buy plain yogurt. I'd put a drizzle of raw honey in it and some fresh fruit. That's the kind of diet that my kids had, and they were unbelievably healthy for a really long time. Their friends at school might get sick left and right, their classmates, and my kids actually made it through elementary school with perfect attendance awards because their immune systems were really protected and fed well, basically. And then we also got into, which is a topic I'll talk about another day, the remineralization of teeth. So despite the fact that they had a no sugar diet at home, of course, I was realistic about it. If they were going to a birthday party or hanging out with friends, they were fine to eat whatever their friends were eating. I didn't want my kids to feel like deprived outside of the home, but in the home, we just ate very healthily. But so despite having a low to no sugar diet, my son actually ended up with a few pinprick cavities when he was really little. And rather than have him sedated, which is what they do to little ones to fill their cavities and get all these fillings in his baby teeth, I decided to once again do my homework as a mom, and I found unbelievable amounts of resources on the remineralization of teeth. And of course, making sure that there's really minimal to no sugar in one's diet was key to that. And again, this is a topic for another video. I've also written about this, but suffice it to say that within 6 months of that remineralization process that I went through with my son, the dentist stood there in front of me with the 2 sets of x-rays and his mouth completely open because he'd never heard, and this was a very well-known, educated man, he'd never heard about being able to remineralize your teeth. So anyway, topic for another day. It's a really good one. Most of us don't know these things until we, find ourselves having to discover these things. But so that just prompted me to keep pushing forward and being that mean, not so sweet mama when it came to sugar. How do we handle Halloween? Halloween is pretty much upon us. I'm not sure when I'm posting this video. It might have already passed. But I did what had been done for me when I was little, was at the end of trick-or-treating, dump out all your candy and pick out 7 pieces of candy, 1 for each day of the following week. And what ended up happening with my kids is let me not be too disorganized, but sugar is addictive. So if you have kind of like researched or learned or studied a little bit about sugar, it basically affects the same part of your brain as drugs do. So when you're constantly eating sugar, your body craves it more and more and more. If you give yourself a decent break from it, you'll find yourself craving it more. So because my kids were not sugar fiends, basically, they would grumble at the fact that they had to only keep 7 pieces of candy. But the reality was about 3 or 4 days later, they'd completely forgotten about the rest of the candy and wouldn't even ask for or eat it. And so eventually would throw it away. So there's that. That's how I handled Halloween. And then we also did the Switch Witch, where we would put the remaining pieces of candy in a bowl, leave it out with a note for the Switch Witch, and she would exchange that candy and leave behind a little trinket or toy or a little special message with a drawing. And they were perfectly happy with that. I will say that parenting low sugar and no sugar when you have teenagers is virtually impossible unless you maybe live off grid, which I don't. But, my son's been working since he was 16. And both of my kids are in high school, so they are exposed to and eat really shocking foods now. But I also don't want to be overbearing on that, because sometimes when you push too hard, especially in the tween to teen years, then they want what you're pushing against even more. So they know that outside of the house, it's a free-for-all. I do ask them to make good choices. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But in the house, I still keep things as healthy as possible. And I still won't personally buy sweets, because if they're there, they're going to get eaten. And the interesting thing is, because my kids kind of have known about the effects of sugar for so long, even though they'll go out and go hog wild with their friends or at school or on the weekends when they're at their dad's house, the minute they start to feel a little bit under the weather or just sluggish, or they start to break out, they know that their food choices have led to worsening of those symptoms, and then they'll cut back. So for example, my son had a cold a few weeks ago, and he immediately knew, I'm going to stop drinking soda at school, and I'm going to stop eating candy at work, and I'm just going to give myself a 2-week detox. And this, coming from an 18-year-old, is pretty impressive. Now, I'm not saying that my kid is like a Nobel Prize type kid. He's bright, he's irreverent, but he does know that what he puts in his mouth is going to affect his overall well-being. So the seeds that you plant when your kids are young do carry through, even if they kind of go nuts in between. And I certainly went nuts when I left home and I went to college. My freshman year in college, I ate disastrously, like disgusting. And then I went home for that summer and ate healthy. And when I came back to school sophomore year, all my friends were like, oh my God, you look so much healthier. You look great. And it really does make a difference. Like, we may not notice it when we're looking in the mirror, that our skin starts to get a little sallow, or the dark circles are darker, or just stuff, this quality of your skin's not so great. You just don't feel as good. And when you've basically detoxed yourself from sugar and other nasty things, your body really, really, really appreciates it and does start to feel better. So I'm a mean mom because I don't buy candy and soda and sugary stuff for my kids, and I'm a mean mom because I don't let them eat all of their Halloween candy, and I'm a mean mom because I make them take their vitamins and supplements, but in the end, they're being healthier for it. I'm healthier for it because that stuff's not around, and I'm not really a sweet tooth. I really prefer, like, if you gave me a pound of bacon, I'd rather have that over chocolate, but if the chocolate's there, I might wrap it in bacon and then eat it. So we all have our guilty pleasures, don't come at me. So I wanted to quickly talk about a very quick recipe. I'm gonna give you the actual recipe in my blog post below, so the link's below for Not So Sweet Mama, and these are for gummy treats. These are gummy treats that I started making for my littles when they were little, and they still eat them to this day. Now they eat them as a little side with their breakfast instead of a snack. And I'm sorry to my vegan friends, if you want to find a vegan version of this recipe, there are plenty online, and I believe they use agar as opposed to gelatin. But these gummy treats are made with gelatin, water, 100% juice, and if you need a little bit more sweetness, you can add in some raw honey. Now, I personally like to make my videos as like streamlined as possible. I don't like to do a lot of editing and chopping up because I want these videos to seem like an actual conversation. I want it to feel like we're having a conversation. But once in a while, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of chopping. So that's what's gonna happen this time, just so you can see what I do to make these gummy treats. And by the way, these gummy treats can be made with any fruit juice that you want. I personally, the ones that I'll use are either 100% cranberry, 100% tart cherry, 100% grape. I think that's pretty much it. And sometimes I'll add in a splash of apple juice just to make them a little bit sweeter. Raw honey, if your kids are super sweet tooths, raw honey is great to put in there and has a lot of health benefits. I've got a video on that as well that I will link below if I remember. And for cold and flu season, you can even add elderberry syrup into these gummies. So that's gonna then give your kids an extra boost of immune boosting stuff, an extra boost of immune boosting. So really using my vocabulary well. So hang tight and I'm gonna show you how I make these, and then the actual detailed ingredients and instructions, like I said, in my blog post below. Okay, so bear with me because I do not know how to do the whole cooking channel thing. So this is the best way, and hopefully my camera doesn't fall into this bowl in the process of explaining how I do this. The first ingredient that I use is beef gelatin. I really like Great Lakes. I find their gelatin to be one of the easiest to dissolve, and it's also just very high quality, which is of course what you want to look in. It's kosher, and I love this particular brand of gelatin. The thing with gelatin is it's also really full of amino acids. So just in this alone, you're gonna have a ton of health benefits. And this is what makes the gummies gummy. So I went ahead and I put half a cup already into this bowl. And as soon as you do that, it's kind of a quick and super easy process, but as soon as you do that, you're gonna put in a cup of cold or room temperature water, really doesn't matter. And then you just start if you have a whisk, you can use it. I prefer a fork because I feel like it breaks up the gelatin a little bit better and faster. And then as soon as you've got kind of a paste consistency, you're gonna put in about a cup or a cup and a half of boiling water. And that's what's gonna liquefy the gelatin, and again, just kind of work it until it's completely dissolved. And you want to make sure that you get enough hot water in there to not end up with any little gelatin bits. And this is perfectly mixed. So we're gonna go ahead then, and I measured out a cup of 100% organic grape juice, Grape juice in my family tends to be the favorite. It does have a bit of a stronger flavor, so it just gives the gummies a good delicious taste. And then I go ahead and pour it into this kind of like a casserole dish, and then stick it in the fridge. In a few hours it'll be done. I usually just leave it overnight. I use this dish because my kids are teenagers now and they don't need special shapes. So in the morning when it's ready, I'll just go, it'll be, totally gelatinized. And I go ahead and just take a knife and cut it into squares, put it in a Tupperware in the fridge, and they keep for like about a week and a half. They eat a few every morning. It gives them just that boost of amino acids. It's really good. Gelatin's great for your skin and hair. If you have littles, what I used to do is you can find like on Amazon the silicone candy molds. So I had like hearts, stars, and gingerbread men, and you can pour the gelatin in there and then pop out the little shapes, which is fun for the little ones. And then in the morning when I'm making breakfast, I will go ahead and pop one of these in my mouth as well because it's great for your skin and hair. So there you have it, my reasoning behind being a mean, not so sweet mama, and my very super simple, quick and easy gummy treat recipe. Like I said, hopefully you guys were able to see how I made it. This is the first time I've done this kind of a video showing you how I make something, but gelatin's really great for your skin, your hair, and your nails. So you don't have to be a kid to have this stuff. Like, you can make it for yourself, regardless of how young or old you may be. So if you want to hear a little bit more, actually, I'm going to give you a great documentary recommendation. The documentary that I watched a few years back with my kids as they got older and were a little bit like, well, why don't we get to eat sugar, is called Fed Up. And I believe you can find it streaming on Amazon. If not, a quick Google search will let you know where it is. Fed Up. It's very, very informative and just important. Empower yourself with what you put in your mind and your mouth. So anyway, hope this was helpful, interesting, useful. Go ahead, like, click, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff so that we can keep rewiring adulthood and your sweet tooth together. See you next time.